The sun had barely risen, but the army base was already alive with the sound of boots pounding against the dirt track. Morning PT was non-negotiable, a ritual that forged discipline and resilience. Soldiers lined up in perfect formation, pushing themselves to the limit. Among them was Staff Sergeant Elena Ramirez, standing slightly apart, shifting uneasily as her squad began their first lap. Colonel Whitaker, a man known for his unyielding standards and sharp tongue, narrowed his eyes at her. "Ramirez," he barked, "what's your excuse this time? Don't tell me a little jog is too much for you." A few soldiers smirked nervously, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. Elena clenched her jaw, her hands tightening around the edges of her jacket. She wasn't the type to explain herself, as she had always believed her service record spoke louder than words. But the whispers and sideways glances had been piling up, and today, Whitaker's voice cut deeper than usual. Finally, she spoke, her tone steady but low. "With all due respect, Sierra Broken Bar, I have my reasons." Whitaker crossed his arms. "Reasons? Or excuses? Out here, Ramirez, everyone's expected to carry their weight. If you can't, maybe you're in the wrong uniform." The words stung. Around her, soldiers shifted uncomfortably, caught between loyalty to their comrade and the rank towering above them. Elena drew a shaky breath, then slowly unzipped her jacket. Gasps rippled through the line. Across her ribs and down her side, jagged scars told a story few could imagine. Deep, ugly reminders of the night her convoy was ambushed overseas. She had dragged 3 wounded soldiers out of a burning vehicle before shrapnel tore through her body. The surgeons had saved her life, but they couldn't erase the price she had paid. The air grew heavy with silence. Even Whitaker's stern expression faltered as his eyes locked on the evidence of her sacrifice. His voice, when it came, was softer, stripped of its usual edge. "Ramirez, a broken bar, I didn't know." She zipped her jacket back up, standing tall though her chest ached with both pain and pride. "Sir, I don't need sympathy. I just need you to understand that I'm still here, still serving. I give everything I can every single day. It just doesn't always look the way it used to." For a long moment, the colonel said nothing. Then, slowly, he stepped forward until he stood directly in front of her. To the astonishment of every soldier watching, Whitaker extended his hand, not as a superior demanding respect, but as a man offering it. "You've already carried more weight than most of us ever will," he said quietly. "From this day forward, no one questions your dedication again." "Not on my watch." Elena hesitated, then took his hand. A ripple of relief and admiration moved through the formation. What had begun as a moment of humiliation transformed into one of honor. As PT resumed, Whitaker jogged as the back of the formation, shoulder to shoulder with Ramirez. No longer a critic, but a quiet ally. That day, the soldiers learned something more valuable than push-ups or miles run. That true strength isn't always visible in muscle or endurance. It's often hidden beneath the silence. That morning still lingered in Elena's mind long after PT ended. She sat alone on the bleachers near the track, water bottle in hand, sweat dampening her hairline. For years, she had carried those scars quietly, hiding them beneath layers of fabric and discipline. She never wanted pity, never wanted to be seen as broken. But standing there in front of her fellow soldiers, jacket unzipped, scars revealed a broken bar, it felt both terrifying and freeing. Colonel Whitaker approached, his steps uncharacteristically slow. He wasn't barking orders now. He wasn't scrutinizing her posture or timing her runs. For the first time, he looked at her not as just another name on the roster, but as a person, one who had endured more than most. "Ramirez," he began, his voice low, steady, "you could have told me. You didn't have to carry that alone." Elena glanced up, meeting his eyes. "With respect, sir, every soldier carries something alone. That's part of the job." He nodded, accepting her words. But there was a glimmer in his eyes, a kind of recognition. "The kind only combat veterans share." "True," he said, "but the best leaders a broken bar, the best teammates a broken bar. They notice when the load is too heavy. They step in, not because you're weak, but because you've already carried more than your share." For the first time in years, Elena felt seen, and not as the soldier who fell behind in PT, not as the one people whispered about, but as the woman who had fought, bled, and come back. Word of what happened that morning spread quietly across the base. Soldiers who once doubted her now looked at her differently. Some nodded respectfully in the halls. Others offered a small smile in the chaw line. One private even whispered, "Thank you for what you did over there," before hurrying off, cheeks red with emotion. It wasn't hero worship. It wasn't pity. It was respect earned the hardest way possible. A week later, during formation, Whitaker did something no one expected. He stepped forward, cleared his throat, and said, "I want everyone here to understand something. Strength doesn't always mean the fastest mile or the most push-ups. Sometimes, strength looks like Staff Sergeant Ramirez, who carried her brothers out of fire and steel, and who still stands here today, ready to serve." The formation stood straighter, the weight of his words sinking in. Elena felt her chest tighten, not from shame this time, but from pride. And then, to her shock, Whitaker added, "From now on, if Ramirez sets the pass, then we all run with her. Because the measure of this unit isn't how fast we go, but how strong we stay together." That morning, as they ran as one formation, no one outpaced her. No one left her behind. The colonel himself stayed close at her side. Elena didn't need validation, but what she gained was far greater: unity, respect, and the quiet assurance that her Scarsa Historia would remind others of what true service and sacrifice really meant. By the time the sun rose high over the base, the air was no longer heavy with judgment, but with something else entirely, a something every soldier hopes for but rarely names. It was trust. It was brotherhood. It was the kind of strength that comes, not from perfection, but from standing shoulder to shoulder, scars and all. And as Elena slowed her stride, falling into step with her unit, she realized something: soft, reflective tone. The days after that morning felt different on base. Elena noticed it first in the smallest ways: a soldier holding open the door for her, another nodding silently as she walked past. No words needed. Respect doesn't always shout up, it often whispers. Pause, shift in tone to thoughtful. But the biggest change came from Colonel Whitaker himself. Where once his eyes searched for weakness, now a broken bar they searched for understanding. Where once he demanded perfection, now he reminded his soldiers of purpose. He still held the linea. He was still the colonel everyone feared disappointing. But something in him had shifted. Maybe it was the scars. Maybe it was the story behind them. Or maybe it was the reminder that soldiers aren't machines. They're people. People who bleed. People who sacrifice. People who carry invisible weights, heavier than any rucksack. Pause. A gentle, slower pacing. One afternoon, Elena was called to his office. She half expected another lecture about standards, but when she entered, the colonel wasn't standing tall behind his desk. He was seated, leaning forward, hands clasped. And for the first time via broken bar he asked her a question that caught her off guard. "Ramirez," he said quietly, "do you ever regret it? What happened over there?" Her breath caught, not because she didn't have an answer broken bar, but because no one in command had ever asked. She met his eyes, steady and calm. "No, sir, I don't regret saving them. I only regret that I couldn't save more." Pause. A softer delivery. The colonel didn't respond right away. He just nodded a broken bar, and for a moment, the weight of silence carried more meaning than words ever could. Finally, he said, "That's why you're still here. That's why this unit needs you, and not in spite of your scars, a broken bar, but because of them." Strong, inspirational tone begins to build. In that moment, Elena understood something. Her scars weren't a weakness. They weren't a reason to hide. They were a reason to lead. Because every soldier in that room, every private, every sergeant, even the colonel himself, carried battles no one else could see. Some had scars on the body. Some had scars on the heart. And if her story gave them permission to keep showing up, to keep fighting, to keep believing that they still matter at a broken bar, then maybe that was her new mission. Pause. A emotional lift. Weeks later, during another morning PT, Whitaker did something no one expected. He called Elena forward. "Ramirez," he said, "you're leading the warm-up today." Gasps, whispers, some even grinned. And with the steady voice, Elena called out the cadence. Her soldiers echoed it back, voices strong, unified. The rhythm of boots hitting the track wasn't just exercise anymore. It was a promise, a reminder that no Onia Scardor Nota runs alone. Slow, Heartfelt conclusion. As the sun rose higher, casting gold across the formation, Elena felt it deep in her chest. This wasn't about proving herself anymore. It wasn't about hiding. It wasn't even about surviving. It was about leading. It was about reminding every soldier that their worth isn't measured in miles run a broken bar or scars hidden a broken bar, but in the courage it takes to keep showing up. And so broken bar she did, every single day, with scars on her body, and strength in her soul. Her scars weren't just a reminder of what she had survived. They were a bridge connecting her story to theirs, teaching them that even the deepest wounds can become the strongest bond, born quietly by those who've given more than most will ever understand. And for Colonel Whitaker, it was a reminder that leadership isn't about pushing people to break, but about seeing their battles, respecting their sacrifices, and standing with them no matter what.